Our meeting is now called to order. We will stand for our invocation and pledge allegiance. To the maker of the heavens and the earth, we thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for the opportunity to serve once again on this side of this earth. We thank you for this council and for all the citizens of this great city. We ask that you will be present today, that you will guide us with your wisdom and with your knowledge, that the decisions that we make today will be for the betterment of this city as a whole. It is in your precious name that we do pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council, we have before us an addendum to be added to the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
The motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, this resolution will be added to our agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like signs. We will proceed with our agenda as outlined. We have approval of our minutes from June the 13th, 2022. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
It's been motioned and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, like sign. As for right now, we are preparing to go to our appearances before council. I will ask that with each individual, as you come forward, please stay conscious of the time. We will ask that you limit all comments to within 5 to 10 minutes. So at this time, we will have coming before council Ms. Mindy Taylor, District Manager from Duke Energy, to present to the City of Florence Duke Energy Emergency Preparedness and Storm Resiliency Grant. Will Ms. Taylor please come forward?
Mayor, members of council, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. You know, the key to the successful emergency preparedness and recovery after a major storm begins and ends at the local level. So in March, we announced that the Duke Energy Foundation was going to grant over $500,000 in micro grants to help increase communities' resiliency and their ability to help residents prepare for and recover from devastation brought by significant weather events. Helping our communities prepare for these events takes significant resources, and these grants will help our fellow first responders, provide them with the tools and the training necessary they need to tackle whatever Mother Nature throws our way. So that's why I'm pleased to announce that the Duke Energy Foundation is presenting a $20,000 grant to the City of Florence to help you all with purchasing things for water rescues and urban search and rescues and the training associated with that.
Thank you.
Yes. You can't take this one to the back.
First off, I'd just like to thank Duke for offering this grant up and then giving us the opportunity and choosing Florence to receive this grant. We'll use the monies off these grants to purchase much needed equipment such as saws, specific training for water rescue so that we could go in and, in the event of storms, typically the associated rainfall that comes along with it, it'll give us the opportunity to go in and provide the needed assistance that we can do. So thank you so much again for what we got, and look forward to the training and aspects of it. Thank you.
Once again, thank you for that. And once again, Mindy, we truly appreciate everything that you and Duke Energy do for our great city. We thank you for the service of keeping the lights on for us. Thank you. So next we have appearing before council is Ms. Suzanne LaRochelle to speak to the council to address concerns regarding gun violence in the community. Ms. LaRochelle, will you please come forward?
I need to bring that down?
You might need to just kind of bend it a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Great. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for allowing me to address the council today. My name is Suzanne La Rochelle. I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker. I have a private practice. I work with families and children doing psychotherapy. I've been doing this for about 30 years. I'm also a mom of 3. My son Benjamin will be going to Georgia Institute of Technology. My son Brennan, who is adopted and has significant special needs, currently is living in Utah in a residential facility because he can be dangerous. And then my daughter, Hannah, she's a sophomore she will be a sophomore at West this year. I'm also a community organizer for social justice. And I am a very active member of the Democratic Party. On July 4th, Independence Day, I participated in a peaceful protest against the Supreme Court of the United States ruling that regulated me and all other women to a second-class citizenship. I am very angry. However, I will never demonstrate my disgust through violence. I will work to get out the vote and organize peaceful events to bring awareness to this ruling, which I believe will cause death to those who are not able to access safe reproductive care. As a clinician, I also believe not allowing a victim of rape and incest to make choices about their body is a form of violence. As a clinician working with young women, I consider it child abuse if we require a 10-year-old to carry a pregnancy. The American Medical Association, the American Pediatric Association, and other national associations agree with me. During this protest that I participated, I did not organize. It was organized by younger women. The majority of people at this protest, which happened, like I said, on July 4th, we marched Irby across Palmetto, around the sidewalks, very peaceful. The majority of the response was very positive, about 70% positive, and that goes to what our nation, 70% of Americans agree with some form of reproductive care. Unfortunately, there were several trucks, probably 3 or 4 trucks, with white men going through the intersection and sharing their disgust with our protest. I won't repeat what they said. Unfortunately, this was the first time in my over 40 years of activism. I have protested in DC, I have protested in Maine, I have protested all over the East Coast, that I felt fear. I was scared. I found myself wondering, do these men have guns? Are these little girls who are out there marching proudly with their signs safe? Are we safe? I did not feel safe. Although I know that elections have consequences, and the consequence of the 2016 election was that our president got to nominate 3 judges to the bench, and they don't agree with me. But I will not be violent. I will not incite violence. I will organize. And this is what I will continue to do. I will not be silent. I am bringing this to your attention because I want to know if the city of Florence, if the police department of Florence has identified and is aware of the extreme men in this city who don't agree with me and who are prone to violence. we're all aware of what happened in Highland Park. The shooter was not a lone wolf. The shooter was well known to activists like myself. The shooter had participated in counter-protest and protest to stop the steal. He had doxed the organizer, who could have been me. He had her name, her address. In 2020, he was harassing her. She notified the police. She even notified the FBI that this guy was dangerous. He and the group of his supporters protest against democracy and have protested against democracy on a regular basis in Highland Park. They knew who he was. And I'm hoping that the city of Florence, the police department in Florence, is identifying who is a potential mass shooter, who is a potential person that is so angry with women or with Black Lives Matter supporters that they could cause harm. I am scared, but I will not be silent. Mayor, in regards to, oh, that's not my pile, this is my pile. Actual violence in the city, violence comes in all different manners. We all know that. This series of mass shooting has nothing to do with inner city violence. And I work with Reverend Woodbury to address some of the issues there. I wanted to share with you, I have done, I'm not kidding you, maybe hundreds of hours of research on what the city can do to address violence.
And Ms. LaRochelle, I do want to remind you, we're getting ready to approach. You're at the 7-minute mark.
Yes, I'll be done in 1 more minute.
Thank you so much.
The Medical University of South Carolina was awarded a $1 million grant to address community violence in their ICU units. I do think that's something that we could do here. And what it does is when someone is shot, goes into the ICU, they immediately start intervention of identifying the cause and try to de-escalate the situation. The second other program that has been successful in this country is getting community influencers. So Columbia now has a new program. And former gang members are now joining with the police departments to go into the communities and influence positive interactions. I think it'd be great if the city of Florence thought about these two different ideas. I'll just leave this here. Thank you for your time.
And Ms. LaRochelle, before you leave, I think Councilwoman Moore wants to speak with you, and I'm going to ask Councilman Schofield, would you give that back to Ms. LaRochelle? Ms. LaRochelle, would you please give that to our city clerk, and she'll make sure each member of the council receives a copy of the information that you're leaving with us. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Pat Gibson-Moore.
I don't know how many of you agree or disagree with Ms. LaRochelle, but I just want everyone in this room to know I wholeheartedly agree with her. So whether you do or not, that's your desire, but mine is that I agree with Ms. LaRochelle. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Moore. It's extremely important that we know who the signs are. We know who these people are, that we identify them, and we intervene before there's a shooting in a parade in Florence.
Chair recognizes Councilman McCall.
Yes, ma'am. Going to your last point pertaining to, I think you said the police officers working with gang members. I don't think we'll exclusively have that here, but I do know this Saturday the police department will be having a gathering in Levy Park. It's called Unity in the Community. I think it's my inclination that they will be at each park in the neighborhood. So trying to get more community involvement and helping solve our, increasing.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank
So
you.
Saturday at what time, Chief?
Starts at 9 o'clock.
Saturday at 9 o'clock at Levy Park. Yeah. Thank you.
And I do want to acknowledge there has been steps and action where we as a city, also with the county and other county areas, we have had communication with some leadership associated with the gangs, and we are in
Thank
that
you.
process. We just at this phase, we're early phase. So we're looking at all avenues that we can address this issue through. As a council, we collectively understand that the only way these issues are going to be addressed is through community. And the change will have to start there within the community, improving communication between this community and law enforcement, but also agencies, just as you were listing some. It's going to take collective, everyone who lives in this area, putting forth the effort to make a change. So thank you for bringing the information to us. And like I said, Ms. Moore will get it out to us. And any suggestions at any time that you have, please feel free to share that with us, because all of us will have to work together, collaborative, to make a change.
I do want to thank the Florence Police Department. Before this last event on July 4th, I did give a courtesy call to let them know that a group of people would be there, and they drove around. I knew that they were there. And there's going to be other protests. There's one scheduled next week, and I don't know after that, but we need to be able to protest peacefully and not in fear.
Thank you so much, and thank you for helping us to obtain that. At this time, our public appearances are coming to a close. Did you? Oh, well, I'm gonna go through these real quick here, and then we'll do that there. Next, we're going to enter into introduction of our ordinance, and the first ordinance we have here is Bill number 2022-19 for first reading, but this ordinance is an ordinance to annex into Zone CG to parcel located at 2640 West Palmetto Street and identified as Florence County Tax Map Parcel 90004-01-026, and this item can be discussed in executive session, so if there's no objection, we'll just hear from that in executive session. Next, the next bill we have is Bill number 2022-20 for first reading. As noted on here, the applicants have withdrawn that bill, so we will not be hearing on that bill today. Next, we have Bill number 2022-2021 for first reading, and it is an ordinance to annex and zone OSR the parcel located at 13 East Palmetto Street, identified as Florence County Tax Map Parcel number 90114-23-004.
So move.
We have a motion, we have a second. So we have a motion and a second. We will hear quickly and briefly from Mr. Jerry Dudley.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. This is the location of the old hotel on East Palmetto Street that's proposed to be demolished. This property is proposed to come into the city as open space and recreation, as its intended use is to be added to the open space associated with Levy Park. And Planning Commission did unanimously make this recommendation, and city staff concurs with this.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that Bill number 2022-21 has passed first reading. The next bill is Bill number 2022-22 has been requested to be withdrawn, so we will not be addressing that today. Next, we're entering into our resolutions. First, we have resolution number 2022-20. It's a resolution to commemorate the many contribution of Frank Willis of the city of Florence and the community. Do we have a motion?
So move.
We have a motion in multiple seconds. At this time, we will hear from Mr. Scotty Davis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This resolution is sponsored by Mayor Pro Temp George Jabali. As you know, Honorable Mayor Frank Willis served as mayor of the city of Florence from 1995 to 2008, making him the third longest mayor of the city of Florence. During his tenure, Mayor Willis bolstered the community by establishing Drug-Free Florence and forming the Mayor's Coalition, among others. Mayor Willis was instrumental in positioning Florence as a regional water service provider to allow for continued growth and economic development for the entire PD region. We do have a resolution, and upon adoption, it will name our surface water plant located at 2598 Florence Harley Boulevard, the Frank E. Willis PD River Regional Water Plant.
We've had our motion and also a second. So before we proceed, is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the resolutions, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, like sign. At this time, we'll ask that Pro Tem Bailey please go forth to read and present the proclamation to Ms. Marguerite Willis.
It would be my
Please
pleasure
come.
to do that. Now, invite Marguerite, if you can come down, please. We're going to do the middle over here. And I'd like to thank everybody who's here on behalf of Marguerite and Frank. And I just love you so much. So thank you all for coming here today. And this is resolution number 2022-20. And it says, whereas Mayor Frank Willis had a vision and a passion for addressing unmet needs in the community, which ultimately led him to run for mayor of Florence, South Carolina, where he served from 1995 to 2008, making him the third longest serving mayor of Florence. And whereas prior to serving as mayor, Willis was a successful local businessman and CEO of Willis Construction Company and chaired the Florence County Economic Development Authority, allowing him to gain insight on the needs of the community. And whereas recognizing a major issue of escalating crime and drug use in the Florence community, newly elected Mayor Willis established the Mayor's Task Force for a Drug-Free Florence in an attempt to reduce the use and distribution of illicit drugs in Florence. Often utilizing his own construction equipment, lot clearing was in full swing by October of 1995 to clear out vacant property and wooded areas that had long been associated with gang and drug activity. And whereas Mayor Willis was known for building relationships and worked tirelessly to bridge gaps that existed in the community, in 2005 the Mayor's Coalition was formed in response to an increase in juvenile crime in the city and has since evolved to include other initiatives such as homelessness that impact the overall quality of life for individuals and families. And whereas during his tenure as mayor, he was known as a consensus and coalition builder, a practical problem solver, and a true visionary committed to the process of economic and community development. And whereas Mayor Willis was instrumental in laying the groundwork for the growth and stability Florence currently enjoys by pushing the city to become a regional provider of a stable water supply and regional wastewater treatment services for both residential and industrial growth. And whereas the revitalization of downtown Florence is largely due to the work of Mayor Willis and his foresight for detailed planning, putting in place the partnerships and processes to drive the heart of the city to flourish throughout the years. And whereas Mayor Willis considered his service to Florence his crowning achievement, and he enjoyed mentoring and creating opportunities for those who would continue to build and sustain the community. And whereas Mayor Willis took a vision and made it a reality by working hard to achieve his goals of unity, growth, and development, fostering relationships, and building partnerships with individuals and stakeholders of the community, and realizing the role Florence would definitely play to drive the entire PD region towards success. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Florence, South Carolina, formally designates the City of Florence Surface Water Treatment Plant located at 2598 Florence Harley Boulevard as the Frank E. Willis PD River Regional Water Plant for Mayor Frank Willis's instrumental role in positioning Florence as a regional water service provider to allow for continued growth and economic development of the PD region, resolved this 11th day of July, 2022. I'm going to have this for you. Thank you.
before you leave, I'm going to ask that the council stand in support because this is a former mayor of the city of Florence. We all come down and be a part. So this is historical.
And as unaccustomed as she is to public speaking, of course, Marguerite is a lawyer's lawyer. So we invite you to come speak, Marguerite.
As everyone is taking their positions there, I definitely have to say to Marguerite that many do not know, but as when I was in the process of running for mayor, I want to thank her for her words of wisdom. And I often smiled and I told Larissa, and I said, when you see me with a jacket on everywhere I go, remember this is because of you. She said, Councilwoman, while you're running, wherever you go, you put on a jacket. And she was, in other words, she was telling me, dress the part that you were seeking. So I smiled and we laughed about that today. So when you see me saying jacket, that's why. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On behalf of my late husband, Frank Willis, a wonderful mayor of this town, a wonderful man, I want to thank George, mayor, entire council for this wonderful honor in his memory. If I might indulge in just a moment of personal privilege, I was struck by what Suzanne had to say today about recent decisions from the Supreme Court and other matters. And 22 years ago, when Frank and I went on our second date, I asked him two questions. I said, okay, what is your position on abortion? He said it's a woman's right to choose. And the second thing I asked him was this. What about the Confederate flag on the top of the State House in South Carolina? He said, take it down. And he lived by those two positions. Frank Willis was a patient man. He was a man who had what I call a long ball game. He knew where he was going, and he knew how to get there. And what he knew in his heart and what he knew in his actions, but he could not get there by himself. And today there's some very special people in this audience that I'd like to recognize, beginning with friend Steve Powers, who is a great friend of Frank's and a former member of this body. The Reverend Terry Alexander, who actually was on the plane with us the day that Frank announced his candidacy for governor. We rode all around the state that day. You remember that, Terry, and we will remember that always. I'll remember that always, and thank you for that. And most importantly, if there is a most important person, the author of what I call Frank's biography, Mayor Frank, Steve Embo. And the last year plus of Frank's life, Steve and Frank met weekly to talk about what Frank had accomplished, what this body had accomplished, what the folks in Florence had accomplished in the 13 years that he was mayor. And anybody who doesn't have a copy of this book and wants one, see me afterwards and I'll make sure you get one. The most important, I think, attribute of my husband was his commitment to what was right. He never wavered on that as far as I could tell. And also the second most important thing was he liked smart women. So I'm just saying. And I don't know if Mindy's still here or not, but Mindy did tell me earlier how much it meant to her early in her career that Frank gave her credit for what was being done by the power company, and it meant a lot to her. So Frank, like I said, likes smart women, and I'm sure, and Pat, I know he was a fan and a friend of yours as well over the years and what you achieved with the Pecan Festival and everything else. But my husband would never have asked, and indeed never did ask, for anything to be named after him in the city. I mean, there's no statue of him. There's no alleyway named after him. There's nothing. And I was determined, and people know this, that something in this town, in this community, would be named after him after all he had done in such a really quiet and determined way for this community. How much of himself he had given to the people of this place. And I can think of no greater honor than to have the water plant, the surface water plant, named after him, because he knew the importance of infrastructure. My husband was a builder. He didn't build fancy buildings. He built the foundation of things. And he knew that in order for this community to prosper and for the people in this community to be safe and secure, particularly with regard to good water, that was an important and essential thing. And I will never forget, when we first married, that was about the time of the big drought. And I will never forget driving by the PD River and seeing the fish dying in the river. And I said to him, "What's going on here?" He said, "There's not enough water coming out of the Yadkin River Basin in North Carolina." I said, "What?" He said, "The water in the PD largely is controlled upstream." And I said in my characteristic way, "Well, why don't you do something about that?" And he said, "Well, I don't know what I'd do." And he thought about it. He said, "Well, maybe I'd just get all the water users together up and down the PD River, because not only did Florence use water from the PD, but so did Georgetown and Myrtle Beach. And this is a little known fact, but if there's not enough flow in the PD to the ocean, then there's saltwater incursion, and that means the folks in Georgetown wouldn't have fresh water." So what did Frank do? He got everybody together, which was his way. I was not at this meeting, but I've heard it told, Steve, that DHEC, a representative of the Department of Health and Environmental Services, was there, and Frank explained the problem, and the folks were all there, and this guy from DHEC made the mistake of getting up and saying, "Oh, that's not my problem." And Frank Willis looked at him and said, "I'm going to make it your problem." And he did. And so I know how much this meant to him. I know how much it means to this community. And I personally will say that I answered more phone calls as the mayor's wife about water and sewer than anything else. So in the day when someone has your phone number, and if you're the mayor or the mayor's spouse or anyone else, you know you're going to be called about those kinds of services. And that's where his heart was. And I thank everyone here today for being here on his behalf. I particularly give my love and my appreciation to Dr. Steve Imbo, who's here today, who was the best friend that anyone could ever have in their life. So thank you for being here. And I'm sorry I didn't mean to cry, but sometimes you just can't help it. He was a great guy. He leaves his mark on this community. And I have one more little thing that I brought for the mayor today, if I might come up and hand it to you, Madam Mayor. I brought this for you. It was on his desk, and it was on his mayor's desk. And it says, "Attitude is everything." And that was Frank Willis. It was all about his attitude of community involvement and service and devotion to a place where he was born and where he chose to. Thank you so much.
We can all give talks for a long, long time about Mayor Willis, but I don't know, Dr. Imbo?
Councilman Jabali, at this time, Chair recognizes Councilwoman Moore. Yes.
on the reading of the resolution, our Mayor Pro Tem talked about how he often used his own equipment to clean lots. And he did. He cleaned a lot of lots with his own equipment. But after he cleaned them, did he just walk away? No, he stayed around and talked to people in the community and often sat on the porch and shared stories with the resident that lived there, especially if it was a senior. They sit on the porch and talk for a long time. So he didn't just do it and walk away. He actually had relationships. He made relationships with people in the community, and that was awesome. And we appreciate everything that he did. And we appreciate you, Marguerite. So thank you so much.
Any other comments from the council members? If not, I do want to hold this up and say I agree 100%. And Marguerite, you do not know how much this means for you to present this to me. I smile because I think of me and Frank's last conversation on the phone and the things that he told me. So I truly appreciate this. And I would too place this on my desk so every day when I'm sitting there, I can look at it. And I thank you for your words of encouragement as I have been serving this position. I have stated before, you are a powerful woman, and you are a perfect role model for all women. So for you to do this, I truly appreciate it. I thank you, and I thank you for supporting Frank Willis during his service. I told you that as a community member, I remember being that young woman who went to city council member meeting, and I saw him sitting there. I think about the meeting that we had. It was right here on Evans Street, right before the All-American City event, and when he hosted that. So even at that point, I was a young mom, community activist, not in politics, but I remember those things from him as a mayor, and I second this. This honor is one that's well deserved because it was because of his forethought to push the water issue that the city of Florence now has such a strong position economically when it comes to the water rights of the city. So and my hat's off to you, because a lot of people don't understand when you're in public office and you're serving, that spouse is so important, that when you come home, you have someone who could come home that you can rest your head with without bringing the burdens of what you're carrying as a city leader. So thank you for your strong support of being there for him, and thank you for being the first lady of the city. Thank you.
One other thing, Mayor.
Councilwoman.
Very brief. Margarita, I just want you to say, I remember your wedding reception. I was there, and it was awesome. And it was awesome. You had everything there, including the ice cream truck. Yes. So.
Well, we thank you again, and we appreciate it. I think that concludes all the thoughts from the council. But once again, thank you. And at any time that you need anything, we're here for you, because your husband has been a great part of this history and future of the city. So thank you again. Thank you. We appreciate it. And at this time, we'll proceed with our agenda as outlined. Next, we do have on here resolution number 2022-21. Thank you. We'll give them a moment. Thank you.
Excuse me a second.
Sure. Go ahead. And next we do have resolution number 2022-21, a resolution to approve a memorandum of understanding between Florence County Sheriff's Office and the Florence Police Department.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. At this time, we will hear from our Chief Alan Hodler.
Thank you. Mayor and members of council, you may remember that I spoke to the task force agreement last council meeting. This task force agreement requires the approval of council. It's a very straightforward task force agreement between the Florence County Sheriff's Office and the Florence Police Department. The main responsibilities, as you see on the front of that memorandum of understanding, revolve around a governing board that the sheriff and I will chair. Will likely include supervision and other supervision from law enforcement, both agencies and other agencies, our federal partners, state partners, and local partners. We'll be traveling we're planning on traveling to York County. They have a very successful task force that This has been somewhat modeled after, and they have a governing board. And so we will be traveling there to just kind of get an idea of how they work that board, because it's very successful there. The agreement also speaks to the guidelines and procedures and distribution of seized assets, and it also temporarily extends the jurisdiction of our officers into Florence County jurisdiction. And if there are any questions about any other aspects of it, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Thank you, Chief. Any discussion? Chair recognizes Councilman Bladder.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Chief, and Sheriff Joy for taking this on. You know, we've all talked about all the violence that we're seeing, and it's going to take a teamwork approach, and having taking down those boundaries between our two departments, I think, is a great first step. So thank you very much for being proactive and doing what the citizens have really been calling for us to work together. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Chair recognizes Pro Tem.
Chief, just from a functional perspective, how many officers are going to be assigned to this task force, and how is that going to play? How does that work?
Well, we're going to look at that in as manpower needs, and that's basically the reason for the task force. I mean, other than the jurisdictional extension that we will need to assist with this, but it's because of manpower shortages in both agencies. So we'll look at what it's going to require, and this will be tweaked on a regular basis. It says in here that the governing board will meet on a monthly basis, but the sheriff and I will meet more frequently than that. There'll be daily assessment on how this takes place and what our objectives are and how we tweak those objectives.
So it's not a fixed thing. It's as the need arises, it may ebb and flow.
It could be 2 or 3 officers one day. It may be something that we develop information on that may require more officers to be involved in.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Thank you.
There'll be a number that will be actually named and assigned to it, but they likely won't be working the task force all of the time.
Understood. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? And Chief, I just want for clarification, the sheriffs have always been they were able to work in the city because their sheriff was sent, but this gives us as a city now the right to be able to operate and work in the county, correct?
Yes, while we were involved with this task force, yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Any other discussions? If not, all those in favor of the resolutions, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Please let it reflect that resolution number 2022-21 has passed. Next, we have resolution number 2022-2022. Do we have a motion or statements? Any motion?
Madam Mayor.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Discussion.
Madam Mayor, this is one of the issues that I think I was so excited about the new Finance Committee coming into play, because oftentimes we are given an opportunity where we have to move funds or shift funds, but we don't get the opportunity to really investigate what the initial CARES Act requests were, what organizations needed money, whatnot. So I would like to see this move to the Finance Committee for review and for them to make a recommendation, and then for us to vote on it after that point.
Are you making an amendment, or what is your motion?
I make a motion that we send resolution number 2022-22 to the Finance Committee for review, for them to submit their recommendation for the use of the funds.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Is the primary who made the motion, are you willing to withdraw your motion so that the resolution?
Yes.
Okay, so that motion is withdrawn. So now we have a motion on the floor, a motion to have resolution number 2022-22 referred to the financial and, make sure I read this incorrectly, y'all.
Audit and Budget Committee?
To be referred to the Financial Audit and Budget Committee. That is your motion.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second that resolution number 2022-22 be moved to the Financial and Audit and Budget committee for further study. Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, like sign. Please let the record reflect that resolution number 2022-22 will be referred to the Financial and Audit and Budget Committee to evaluate and then come back with a recommendation. Next, we have resolution number 2022-23. It's a resolution to honor all Florence School District 1 students that graduated high school with associate degree from Florence Donaldson Technical College. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion, multiple seconds. And at this time, we will hear from Deputy City Manager, Mr. Scotty Davis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. This resolution is sponsored by Councilman Shaquez McCall. This is a resolution to honor all Florence School District 1 high school students that graduated with a diploma and an Associate of Arts degree from Florence Darlington Technical College. The early college program was established in Florence School District 1 in 2014, and it offers students the opportunity to take college classes leading to an Associate of Arts degree from Florence Darlington Tech. This is the 7th graduating class of the Florence School District 1 early college program. The program offers 71 college hours, and we do have 11 students from FSD 1 that graduated with a diploma and the Associates of Arts degree.
You've heard from Mr. Davis. Are there any questions? Any discussions? All those in favor of resolution number 2022-23, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that resolution number 2022-23 has passed, and I do believe that we have our principal from Wilson High School present. Would you please come forward, and we will ask that Councilman McCall please proceed down and read and present the.
She still come down.
You can come.
So a resolution to honor all Florence School District 1 high school students that graduated high school with an associate degree from Florence Donaldson Technical College. Whereas the early college program was established in Florence School District 1 in the summer of 2014, it offers students the opportunity to take college classes leading to an Associate of Arts degree. And whereas in the high schools, a certified college instructor teaches the students in the program. Florence School District 1 high school students of the program will earn at least 3 hours of college credit for each class they successfully complete. The early college program offers a total of 71 college hours, and whereas 11 Florence School District 1 school seniors made up the cohort of 2022 early college students. The students are members of the 7th graduating class of the early college program, and whereas in addition to receipt of the high school diploma, these seniors received an Associates of Arts degree from Florence Darlington Technical College, and it is recently held a graduation ceremony. And whereas Michaela Briggs, Jaden Ocampo, Tania Traper, Amaya Austin, Alexis Barnes, Samaria Ellaby, Tyree Davis, Kylie Rainey, Morgan Davis, Amaya Lewis, and Joshua Burks all received an Associate of Arts degree at the annual graduation ceremony for Florence Darlington Technical College on May 12th. And therefore, be it resolved that the City of Florence, South Carolina commends this academic accomplishment and congratulates these students for receiving both their high school diploma and associate's degree. And we have today Dr. Robertson here to accept this resolution. Maya is here.
Dr. Robinson, y'all can come forward so that they can get you on camera and also. Y'all can shift over. Jaquez, come up and center with them. Yeah, you can come with them so you can be with them.
I just want to thank this governing body for recognizing such things as this. Often we hear about such the bad things going on in our community, but this is something good. I'm proud of all of these students. I have with me today Ms. Amaya Lewis. She's a graduate of Wilson High School. She'll be attending. Hampton University in the fall. But she also received her associate's degree from Florence Donaldson Tech, along with the other students, and we're very proud of her. Thank you again.
We got to give it. Chair recognizes Councilman McCall.
Yep, and I want to make a small point. I want to again thank those students for taking up that challenge and getting both their high school diplomas and their associate's degree. But I think it goes to another bigger point of the partnership between Florence School District 1 and Florence Donaldson Tech, and being able to tackle student loan debt. Student loan debt is something that millennials, Generation Z, and the following generations is suffering from ever since the Great Recession. It's often easy for state lawmakers to pull money from higher education. And with these students being able to get over 71 hours of college credits, a lot of them will be going into college as juniors. It takes that financial burden off of them, and I want to again applaud Florence School District 1 and Florence Donaldson Tech for allowing our bright students to be able to tackle that and make sure that we're also taking the taking the blunt end of not making and saddling our kids with student loan debt. So again, thank you.
Any other discussion, questions from the council?
I'll just say that
Chair recognizes Councilman Braddock.
I got to save some of that money, so I'm very grateful as well. I have two daughters who went through and skipped a year, so yeah.
Any other discussion? In other words, also want to thank you, and a special thank you to Principal Robinson for all that you do, especially there at Wilson, and to our student, congratulations. And I hope you much success on your journey. And once again, I would like to recognize Florence School District 1 and Florence Donaldson Technical College for working together. And I know that we've heard about the issues which plagues us when it comes to violence. And I concur with Principal Robinson. This is a solution, that we help our students be able to focus on their careers and the positive things in life and support them. There are just so many students who are successful. When you look at the overall numbers, we have more success than we have failures. But when there's one, we still must work to solve the sequence we prevent any. So once again, thank you and congratulations on your success. And next we will have on our agenda, addendum item which we added, which was resolution number 2022-24. It's a resolution approving an amendment to the conditional grant and development agreement dated July 30th, 2021 between the City of Florence and the Urban Development Service. This item will be discussed in executive session if there's no objections. So we'll take that item on in executive session. Next, we'll proceed on to our reports to council. First, we have appointments to our boards and commission. We have several appointments here. If there's any need or desire, this item can be taken up in executive session. Do we need to take this in executive session, or is the council prepared to proceed forward? Hearing no objection, appointments to boards and council will proceed, and we'll have come before us Deputy City Manager, Mr. Scotty Davis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. We have 11 boards of commissions that either have vacancies or expired terms. Our first is the Accommodation Tax Advisory Committee. There are 2 expired terms on the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee. Majority of the committee members should be individuals from the hospitality industry. We have Councilman Schofield and Moore to make nominations. Seeking reappointment, we have Daniel Paello, who's in the hospitality and lodging, and Steve Delaveris in the hospitality and lodging. Rashad Cade is a new applicant. Michael Tommy Phillips, new applicant. Gerald Stevens, new applicant. None are employed in the hospitality industry.
We have first.
One second. I'm sorry.
Sure. Chair recognizes Councilman McCall.
So I thought I thought there was no objection, so we'll hear from executive session first and then come back up. I didn't hear that right?
Right. If we want to motion, you could have motioned.
Okay.
But do you have?
I think it was legal advice that could be given, but I think the votes will still be taken out in public, right? But there could potentially be legal advice that we get on it first. So could I still make a motion at this time that we hear this in executive session first?
You can go ahead and just you can motion that we move to executive session. If you can motion that we move right now, so
Yeah.
we can.
At this time, I make a motion that we receive legal advice pertaining to boards and commissions.
Okay, do we have a
executive session.
do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion, second, in discussion. Hearing none. Question?
So, are we going to executive session to get legal advice about the nominations and then coming back out to make the
Yeah,
nominations?
we can. Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing no discussions, all those in favor of moving to executive session to receive legal advice, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. We are proceeding to executive session, receive legal advice on this. Ladies and gentlemen, we are returning back from our executive session for where there was no votes taken. We were in executive session in relationship to appointments to boards and commission, and we were in executive session for the discussion of report regarding an appointment member of a public body and receipt of legal advice regarding same, which would be 30-4-70A1 and 30-4-70A2. At which time, again, I would like to stress no motions. Our votes were taken back in that process. So we return now to appointments and to boards and commission, and we will recognize Deputy City Manager Scotty Davis. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, members of council, Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee, we have council members Schofield and Moore to make appointments. Seeking reappointment is Daniel Paolo and Steve Delaveris.
Chair recognizes Councilman Schofield, followed when Councilman Schofield will then recognize Councilwoman Moore. Councilman Schofield, what is your position?
I'd like to nominate the reappointment of Stephen Dulaveris.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been properly motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor of Stephen Dulaveris being appointed, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Please let the record reflect that he has been appointed to Accommodation and Tax Advisory Committee. Next, we have Councilwoman Pat Gibson High Moore. Councilwoman, what is your position?
I'll reappoint Dan Piola.
Could we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Mr. Piola, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Let the record reflect that Mr. Piola has been reappointed.
We have Agricultural Commission, seeking reappointment is Jesse Adams. Making an appointment, council member is Councilman Braddock.
Chair recognizes Councilman Braddock.
I make a motion to reappoint Mr. Adams.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of Mr. Jesse Adams, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Let the record reflect that Mr. Adams has been reappointed.
We have 4 expired terms on the Planning Commission. Seeking reappointment is Thurman Bacote, Drew Chaplin, Betty Gregg, Charles Howard. Council members to make nominations start with Mayor Pro Tem Jabali.
Chair recognizes Pro Tem Jabali.
I renominate Chairman Drew Chapter.
Do we have a second for Mr. Drew Chapman? Is the motion and second for Mr. Drew Chapman? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Mr. Chapman, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Chapman has been reappointed. And next we have...
Next nomination goes to Councilwoman Barnes.
Charles Howard is my.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for Mr. Charles Howard. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Mr. Howard, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Next.
Next, our appointment goes to Councilman McCall.
Chair recognizes Councilman McCall.
Your Honor, I said Your Honor. Excuse me. I'm not recording.
Too much is more.
No, at this time, I will nominate Jerry Keith Jr.
Okay. Do we have a second for Mr. Jerry Keith Jr.? Okay, we have a motion, multiple seconds for Mr. Jerry Keith Jr. Any discussion? Hearing No discussion. All those in favor, Mr. Jerry Keefe Jr., please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, like sign. Let the record reflect that Mr. Jerry Keefe Jr. has been appointed. Next.
The next appointment goes to Madam Mayor.
At this time, I will reappoint Ms. Betty Gregg. That's my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and second for Ms. Betty Gregg to be reappointed. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Ms. Betty Gregg, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, like sign. Let the record reflect that Ms. Betty Gregg has been reappointed. And next.
Our next board is the Board of Zoning Appeals. We have seeking reappointment Larry Adams and Larry Tuning. Council members to make nominations starts with Councilman Schofield.
Chair recognizes Councilman Schofield.
I'd like to make a nomination to reappoint Larry Tuning.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's a motion and a second for Mr. Larry Tuning. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, like sign.
Our next appointment is to Councilwoman Moore.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Moore.
I reappoint Larry Adams.
We have a motion for Mr. Larry Adams. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Mr. Larry Adams, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, like sign. Let the record reflect that Mr. Adams has been appointed.
Our next board is the Civic Center Commission. We have one vacancy and we have an applicant, Ms. Molly Lee. The nomination goes to Councilman Braddock.
Chair recognizes Councilman Braddock.
I'll appoint Molly Lee.
Second.
His motion and second for Ms. Molly. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Let the record reflect that Ms. Molly Lee has been appointed.
Our next board is the Construction and Maintenance Board of Adjustments and Appeals. We need a mechanical contractor. We do not have any applicants at this time. It falls to Madam Mayor.
At this time, due to a lack of applicants, I will defer and encourage all of our mechanical contractors to please apply at thecityoflorence.com. Thank you.
Our next board is the Housing Authority. Seeking reappointment is Ms. Elishawn Redding. That appointment falls to Madam Mayor.
Okay. Ms. Reding, it would be my motion that reappoint Ms. Reding.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Ms. Reding, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, like sign. Let the record reflect that Ms. Reding has been reappointed to the Housing Authority as a resident.
Our next board is Parks and Beautification Commission. We have two vacancies. Making nominations starts with Mayor Pro Tem Jabali.
Chair recognizes Pro Tem Jabali.
I nominate Michael Henderson.
We have a nomination for Mr. Michael Henderson. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second for Mr. Henderson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, like sign. Let the record reflect that Mr. Henderson has been appointed.
Our next nomination falls to Councilwoman Barnes.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Barnes.
I'd like to appoint Darrell Mitchell.
Mr. Darrell Mitchell has been nominated. Do we have a motion second?
Second.
We have a proper motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Mr. Darrell Mitchell signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that aye for me. Any opposed? Like sign. Let the record reflect that Mr. Darrell Mitchell has been appointed to the Parks and Beautification Commission. Next.
We have the PD Regional Airport Authority. We actually have two vacancies on that board. First to make a
Councilman,
nomination.
do you have any statements y'all wanted to make?
Oh, no, sorry.
All right, thank you.
Well, I was telling George to put his microphone on.
Thank you. Deputy City Manager.
Yes, ma'am. We have the PD Regional Airport Authority. We have two vacancies on that board. The first falls to Madam Mayor.
I would defer at this time.
The next falls to Councilman McCall.
I would like to nominate Robbie Hills.
Do we have a nomination for Mr. Robert Hill? Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Mr. Hill, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, like sign.
Our next board is
Hearing
aesthetics.
none, hearing none, Mr. Hill is properly appointed.
Our next board is Aesthetics Advisory Committee. We have 3 positions available. Nominations include Councilwoman Moore for the nomination for seat 7.
Okay, the chair recognizes Councilwoman Moore for seat 7.
I'll defer.
Councilwoman is deferring.
Our next nomination falls to Madam Mayor.
I will defer at this time.
Our final nomination falls to Councilman Schofield.
I will nominate to reappoint Tim Cunningham.
Do we have a second for Mr. Tim
Second.
Cunningham? We have a proper motion and second for Mr. Tim Cunningham. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Mr. Cunningham, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that Mr. Tim Cunningham has been reappointed to the Aesthetic Advisory Committee.
Our final board, Madam Mayor, is the Resilience and Sustainability Advisory Committee. We have 3 vacancies on this committee. Our first nomination falls to Mayor Pro Tem Jabali, a representative from District 2.
Chair recognizes Pro Tem.
My understanding of the applicants is that one of them does qualify as a representative District 2, and that would be Leah Woodbury. So I nominate him for that position.
Second.
We have a motion and second for Mr. Leo Woodbury. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Mr. Leo Woodbury being appointed, please signify by saying aye. 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 And opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that Mr. Leo Woodbury has been appointed.
Next, we have nominations from Councilwoman Moore.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Moore.
I nominate Lyles Cooper.
We have a motion for Mr. Lyles Cooper. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's properly motion for Mr. Cooper. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Mr. Cooper, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that Mr. Cooper is appointed.
Finally, we have nominations from Councilman Braddock.
Chair recognizes Councilman Braddock.
Appoint Hunter Morgan.
We have a nomination for Mr. Hunter Morgan. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Mr. Morgan, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that Mr. Morgan has been appointed.
Madam Mayor, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Next item we have is an item with Dr. Gerard Moultrie, board member from Housing Authority, to give a report to the council on the Housing Authority. If there are no objections, we will take this item up in executive session at the end of our meeting if there's no objection. Hearing none, this item D will be taken in executive session. Next, we have committee reports. First, we have a report from our Business Development Committee. We will hear from that time from the chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. The Business Development Committee met on June 24, and we had an update regarding stormwater projects that were ongoing, again, focusing on infrastructure needs in the city. We had a report on the roads, what's happening with regard to the roads, very detailed reports on that. We also had a brief update on the situation with the infrastructure with regard to water and the difficulties that we're experiencing in the city. I think we felt like it would be very helpful for council and the community to get an update from our utilities director, Michael Hemingway, on what's going on with our water, and I'm not going to have water and sewer. We'll do sewer another day. But let's just focus ourselves on our water system, and you are the expert on water. And boy, I tell you, if you ever want to get an education, just sit down with Michael sometime and start talking the technicals of what happens in the water. He loses me after like a minute. So,
Chair recognizes Mr. Hemingway. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and City Council. Recently, we've had large volume of water quality issues in the center part of the system, and that has been attributed to our Donaldson Street water plant that's located at 1006 West Donaldson Street. We had a failure in the well pump motor, and that stopped the pump from pumping water from the Black Creek Aquifer into the water plant and then through the production process. By the time staff identified that the motor had failed, we still have our clear well motor that pumps water from the plant into the distribution system. So the clear well motor was continuing to pump while the aquifer motor had stopped. And it drawed down the level within the Clearwater Basin to where it was starting to pull sediment that settled out over time into the distribution system. Since this time, staff has responded to 145 calls or recalls from public complaints and reflowed approximately 150 hydrants and at a volume of over 6 million gallons to remove the excess sediment from the system. We've already started the process of getting replacement parts. It's going to take a total of 17 weeks to get all the parts back from the different vendors to get installed. So we're looking at the second week of November, having all the materials to be able to get that plant back online. Right now, in the interim, we're having a hydraulic shift, so this part of the city is now being backfed from our surface water facility, our Highway 52 water plant, South Edisto plant, and the East Pine Street plant are now making up that area that would have been fed by the Donaldson Street water facility. So we still have adequate volume to supply all the customers with water. It's just coming from different locations and changing the system hydraulics until we get that facility back online, hopefully in November.
so
We have it. Oh,
excuse me, I'm
you-
still
go
in the
ahead.
middle of the
You-
committee report. Thank you. So, as I understand it, we have, and there was a really good article. If anybody has not read it, the Morning News did a really nice article a few days ago talking about the water system. And if I can understand it correctly, Michael, and if you certainly feel free to let me know if I'm not getting it correct. But we have 34 wells, 33 or 34 wells that go into the two different aquifers.
Correct.
Inside the city that we use, and you see the tanks, and that's how we get a lot of the water that comes to the city. And my understanding is a little over 10 million gallons a day that comes from the aquifers. Is that right?
Combination is 34 wells that pump to 14 water plants, and then those water plants treat it and then push out. And then the elevated tanks is 14 elevated tanks. 14 elevated tanks, and if they are completely full, that's approximately 9.1 million gallons of water. And then the balance, right now we get like 65% of our daily water use from the aquifers and 35% from the surface water facility. Surface water makes up the north and northeast and northwest portion of the system. Groundwater takes the south, southeast, and southwest portion of the system.
So there's about 4+ million gallons a day coming from the Petey River that is getting treated at that surface water plant, the Frank E. Willis surface water treatment
Correct.
plant. So we're getting about 4+ million gallons a day out of that. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's my understanding that the Donaldson Street facility is down, the pump is down, and so now that's going to be till November.
November till we get out.
And I know that just like everybody else in terms of the supply chain and all of those difficulties, the water department's no different in terms of having to try to balance things and deal with how many other wells are out. I mean, I know all of them aren't online at the present time. It's my understanding that we have a number of other ones for various reasons that are out. Just what kind of numbers are we looking at overall?
Overall, right now, the Donaldson Street well, our GE well, and our Liberty Chapel well are presently offline.
And are all of those waiting for parts to come in and other maintenance issues? Is that what we're dealing with there?
The GE well, we are working on that as part of the federal funding package to hopefully drill a new well there altogether.
Okay.
And put a new well in at the GE facility. The Liberty Chapel, we're waiting on parts and materials to get that one squared away.
Thank you for that. And in the meantime, as I understand it, there's plenty of water available.
Right.
And you had mentioned water quality, and I think this is important that people understand. There's a difference between water safety and water quality, and I think people sometimes see the reddish tone that comes out, like with sediment or I think excessive iron is also.
Florence sits on top of iron deposits, so as you move through the community from south to north, the quality of iron or the quantity of iron increases, and as you move from east to west, the volume of iron increases within the system. And that's why you have the 14 water plants where we go through a filtration. Those are those kind of big blue vessels that you see sitting next to the facility. So we pump the water into those vessels first, and then they are filtered and then aerated and then chemically treated on the backside before we distribute into the system. But there are still sometimes some dissolved iron that still makes it through the filtration system that settles out into the system, and that's what the customers are experiencing, that dissolved iron that makes it through the filtration system at the water plants.
And just so that everybody's clear, while no one wants reddish colored water, you don't want to take a shower in it. You certainly don't want your clothes washed in it because it can stain the clothes and things of that nature. No one wants that. But if I understand correctly, the water is still safe.
Yes, sir. The water is still continued to be safe. We collect 84 bacteriological samples every month. Those samples have all come back clear. And also, in addition, DHEC is taking samples in the same areas of town, and their samples have come back clear without any type of bacteriological contamination.
And that's ongoing, especially with the Donaldson plant down. DHEC is also involved to checking the water.
Yes, sir. And the 84 samples we require to do every month.
And one of the other things that was presented at our committee meeting is that there is an assessment that's going on, an asset
management.
And so if you would just briefly tell us what's involved with that, and as I understand it, it's going to deal with not only the pumps and the wells, but also all of the pipes that run throughout the city that deliver the water.
Yes, sir. Last year when City Council approved last year's 2021-22 budget, part of our capital plan was an asset management. And that's where we're going to go in through our consulting engineer, AECOM, and look at all the assets within the utility system. That's every linear footage of pipe, every pump, motor, and facility. And this is going to be a 10-year process at the minimum. Right now we budget $100,000 per year, but it's going to probably increase a little bit. And that'll help us determine in the future the priority for replacement of materials, pumps, and motors, and what time frequency those items should occur.
And as well as pipes that are problematic as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that, thank you very much, Mike. Appreciate that. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Chair.
How does your report? I want to
Well,
ask a question.
first, well,
Yes.
now you concluded your report.
Yes, that concludes our report. Thank you
Right.
very much. Unless any council members?
The report has been concluded by the chair, so at this time, any questions from the council or the committees, or any statements?
I got a question.
Chair recognizes Councilman McCall.
So you're saying the dissolved iron?
Yes, sir.
That's causing the
Yes, sir.
The discoloration?
Yeah, the coloration of iron is a reddish brown in color, and what happens over time as you get a little bit of that's dissolved that gets through the filters. And mainly when you change the hydraulics in the system, that's to kind of flow the direction of the water. And if that changes all of a sudden or any other type of disruption to the system, it pulls that settled iron out of settlement and puts it back in flotation. And then when you open your spigot or your yard hydrant, you'll see that coloration in the system. And if you go around town or in the Florence area and you look at people who are on regular yard wells, you'll see that reddish color on theirs. And that shows, again, that direct iron concentration that they pull from the aquifers.
But you said it's safe to drink?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Chair recognizes Councilman Schofield, following Councilman Schofield, Chair recognizes Councilwoman Barnes.
Michael, so just help me understand something. You're aware I sell pumps,
Yes, sir.
and things like that of that nature, and so do our tanks not have float systems to prevent the other pump from continually pumping out raw water that's not suitable?
Yes, sir. The settlement in the Donaldson Street plant will have to continue to pump because it still was water in the clear well, but we just had too much sediment still resolved that. On a regular basis, staff normally takes those offline and then re-clean those to get, but that cycle hasn't come back around, so we still had a higher volume of settlement. And then as the pump dropped down, or pumped down, then it was allowed to pull that settlement by the time staff cut it off.
Well, you just answered my second question with the first one as well, because I was going to ask how often we actually do purge the systems and clean them out and then allow them to refill.
Those are done usually we try to do that in the winter time because that's non-peak flow time. So usually we try to do the settlement cleaning in the month of December. We used to redo stuff in the summer, but then with hurricane season, the issues there. So now we try not to do any type of major work during the summer months. And so we try to do our major work from December to April to try to beat hurricane season.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Moore.
Could you tell them the nutrient that's in the water with the iron, what you told us about the vitamin? Well, I'll tell you, the vitamin D. And so we've got enriched water. We're infusing the water with vitamin D. And I think Michael said that it's equivalent to the craving of red clay. Some people would crave it. That's what the water is infused, that nutrient.
That concludes.
That's it for me. I was just.
Any other questions,
We got
comments? If not, we would like to thank you, Mr. Moore, for your report. Chair, does that conclude your?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, next we have on reports, Community Development Committee. We recognize that, Chair.
Madam Mayor, no reports.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, we have our Marketing and Public Relationship Committee. Would the Chair please give a report?
Yes, ma'am. We did not meet last month. We are excited about meeting on July 20th. We'll have Jeff Siegler coming for a community civic health assessment. We'll be doing a Zoom call and look to get some action items out of that meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, we have a report from our Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee. Would that Chair please?
And we don't have a report this time, but we will have our first meeting on Wednesday. We don't have a time yet, but we'll have our first meeting on Wednesday.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. And next, we do have our Judicial Review Committees, but that is a personnel item, and if there's no objection, we will receive reports on that in executive session. So at this time, this concludes our agenda. We will prepare to go into our executive session, and as noted on the executive session part, we will be proceeding in order to receive legal advice on annexation request, which is 30-4-70A2, as well as we will receive some legal advice based on 30-4-7A1, and also advice from 30-4-70A2, and personnel matter, which will be covered under 30-4-70A1. If there's no objection, we will proceed into executive session. Hearing none, we're in executive session. And our first executive session item, which was the bill number 2022-19, which was for a first reading. It was an ordinance to annex and zone CG the parcels located at 2640 West Palmetto Street and identified as Florence County Tax Map parcel number 90004-01-026. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? It's on, that's the first item, page 1 agenda. Yeah, bill number 2022-19. Okay. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that bill number 2022-19 has passed first reading. Next, our second item that we have is resolution number 2022-24, which was an item that was added via an addendum, and it's a resolution approving an amendment to the conditional grant and development agreement dated July 30th, 2021, between the City of Florence and Urban Development Services. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that resolution number 2022-2024 has passed. Next, we have on our agenda, we received report to council. That report was report from Dr. Gerard Moultrie, board member of the Housing Authority. And at time, do we have a motion or any recommendations?
Madam Mayor, based on the report we received, I move that we request staff to facilitate an internal examination of the situation and report back to council at a future meeting, please.
Madam Mayor, I recuse myself from this conversation due to being related to someone involved in it.
Let the record reflect that Councilwoman Moore has recused herself due to personal relations with commissioners. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, like sign. Let the record reflect that the motion has passed to have a staff to intercede to do an internal investigation of the information that was presented to us for a future presentation to the council. Okay, and at this time, next we have on our listing is a report from our Judicial Review Committee. Do we have a position with that?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Mayor, at this time, we would like to defer this matter to the next month's meeting.
If there's no objection, the report to council from our Judicial Review Committee will be deferred until next month's meeting. Hearing that, that's all the items we have.
Move to adjourn.